Hi, all. Scott here from Art of the Genre. And today on Fast Talking, we're going to be talking a little bit about classic Elric in the Stormbringer series, kind of by Chaosium. This is my conversion of how I put it into my fast system, but it's just basic gaming notes. And you can get those in the description below if you want to see exactly how I put it into the fast system or how I play Chaosium system here. This is a big Stormbringer box set from Chaosium back in the day. It's obviously they're no longer doing Stormbringer, but if you have these on your shelf or something like that, or looking to actually do a game of them or facilitate a setting, one of the things that you find when you're looking at Stormbringer or a lot of these old games that came out in the 80s is the inability to translate them easily to your tabletop, because the mechanics are vastly different than what you currently see in like D20 and fifth edition or anything like that, or what a lot of players are going to be used to today, because the mechanics are now they're pushing 40 years old. So when I look at fast and when I run Stormbringer or Elric of Melnibone in it, these are just kind of what I look at and how I used the basic framework of that game and all the writings and everything that went with it into to translating it to your new tabletop into the fast setting. So we'll just get into it, and I'll start going through some of the details that we're looking at here. Obviously, Stormbringer and Elric is from the writer Michael Moorcock. It's probably one of the more known or epic fantasy series in existence since its inception. And Elric is an interesting character. You're basically talking about, that kind of it's not. I wouldn't necessarily call it pulp, but it's coming out of the pulp genre, because a lot of the stuff that Moorcock did was it took its onus from, let's say, Howard's Conan and Fafford and Grey Mouser and then stuff like that. So you feel a lot of that swords and sorcery in Elric. He's part of basically a dying race on a dying world that is succumbing to the powers of chaos as they bleed over into the world. And there are a lot of stories, and obviously the biggest draw of this, I think, that most people were intrigued with, is the sword there that you can see, and that is Stormbringer. It's a doom blade. It sucks souls for to be consumed by the demons inside it. And you hear the phrase, blood and souls for Ariok, the god of chaos. But nevertheless, Elric is a penultimate character, but playing within the course of his universe, unless you're specifically playing something out of one of the short stories or books that Moorcock wrote, there are a lot of really great campaign opportunities and the ability to do a lot of different things in this world. One of the things that you look at, although most races within the setting are going to be human in their nature, they're all from different areas and tend to have a little different traits and additions and stuff. So in Fast, I went in and looked at the 20 different races from Melnimene to Pentangian to Mirin, Jacorin, Shazarian, Vilmir. I mean, they're just, you continue to go through them, and they all give you a little bit of a change and a bonus within the fast system. Those are the first things I wanted to look at when I was doing it. And then I also had to look at how sorcery within the concept of Stormbringer played out as well. And one of the things that you have to look at in something like Stormbringer or the Elric setting is that there aren't really spells in the standpoint of anything that you would see in a standard fantasy D&D type setting. So you're not throwing a fireball, lightning bolt, disintegrate, or anything like that. What you're actually doing are all summonings. Everything in the world is based around summoning. So summoning is a particularly fine element. Then you summon something, either it being a demon or an elemental, and then that demon or elemental, you bind it, and it has services that it will do for you. So that's something to take into effect. So you can bind an elemental to an item, and then let's say that elemental, you can utilize it until you kind of use it up. And it can go forever if you don't overuse its power. So you have to watch something like that. But if you absolutely need it to have a little bit extra oomph, you can use it up completely and free the elemental inside it. And you can bind demons to armor and weapons, obviously, like the blade Stormbringer. So you put that all in the aspects of it, and the aspects of sorcery, which bleed off of the CCV. So there are no necessarily healers or clerics or anything like that in Stormbringer. Everything is, anyone who has magic is considered a sorcerer, and they go from rank 1 sorcerers, which can do just a few little things, summon an elemental, and then second rank sorcerers have the start having the ability to summon a couple smaller demons, and then they go all the way up to 5th rank sorcerer, which has the ability to actually make contact with the deities, kind of the lords of law or the lords of chaos. I also had to put in, obviously, statistics for light, medium, and heavy demons that you can bring into existence. How those demons, work in combat if you're going to use them just directly free form. There are various types of demons as well, which you have to look at in the aspect of this: demons of protection, knowledge, travel, desire, possession, and all those rules had to be created on the fly through my notes when playing this campaign. It was when we played the campaign, it was absolutely fantastic to play, especially if you understand Elric and the way that the world is played out. One of the things here I'm talking about is that Dreaming City. There's so many great references to Elric. This is obviously from the back of White Plume Mountain. This is a D&D image done by Bill Willingham back in the day. Obviously, the character in this is not technically does not have Stormbringer. He's got one of the artifacts within the 3 artifacts that you can find within White Plume Mountain. But you will see stylistically, he's very much riffing off of Elric and Stormbringer in this particular piece. And that brings me to D&D on the whole. One of the first contacts I ever had with Stormbringer was finding it in the old deities and demigods. If you happen to have the deities and demigods that had Melnibonéan and Cthulhu mythos in it before those were stripped out because of copyright law, you can see some great pieces from artist Jeff D, who did all of the Melnibonéan pieces. And here he has his rendition in 2012 of Elric and Moonglim. You can see there's an original one from 80s. That's one of the Aryans, I think. And then you've got Ariak. It's another great picture. That's a 2012 as well. You have the Lord of Law there, Donblis. I actually have his 2012 original on my wall. I bought from Jeff. So it's right above me right now as I talk about this. But anyway, other warriors of law and stuff like that. And then, of course, the summonings, talking about elementals and stuff like that and how you can bring those particular things up. So if you're looking at elementals, that would be something anybody can summon a demon or an elemental. But typically, you're looking at 2 different sides of power within the course of Stormbringer. One of them are those who serve the Lords of Chaos, and the other ones are serve the Lords of Law. Lords of Law typically will find themselves investing in the summoning of elementals and the binding of elementals and the Lords of Elements. And the other that you're looking at would be summoning up demons and having contact with Ariak or Zionbarg or something, or the other Lords of Chaos. So you have to keep that in mind. I had to go through and create all the elemental powers for the air, water, and so forth. But that was a lot of fun to do. And once you start understanding concepts, it was one of the hardest things I think my players had to look at, was just the aspects of summoning themselves. And like anybody that plays a wizard or a spellcaster wants to be able to have the ability to cast directional spells when really you're just using the things that you've summoned. to do work for you. And that's why there's so many different things that like water can do. You can move at a rate of 5 miles an hour through water with an elemental. You can transport a single person through water for up to 2 hours with the ability to breathe. You can create water at a gallon. The metal that you can touch can turn to rust. I mean, there's so many different things, and that's with every single elemental has the different powers to do things like that. And then you've got also something called the virtues of law. You could be somebody who follows the aspects of law and therefore serve the lords of law. And you can bring up a virtue, which is kind of like a demon entity, but it's a angelic, I guess, in its nature. And they have the same thing as kind of demons: virtues of attack, virtues of defense, virtues of knowledge, and virtues of travel. And last but not least, in the aspect of the game system itself, obviously in Fast, you've got fated points, and they're transitioned in the realm of Stormbringer to be something called Elan, and you can use those Elan in the same way that you can use the fated points. So I put all that stuff in the notes when you're looking at it, but the aspects itself of Stormbringer, it's such a great place to play, and there's so many great short stories and stuff. If you haven't read them or have them on your shelves, you should just go to YouTube. You can find a lot of them, actually, people reading them, and find some great audio pieces to give you a good feel for the universe. And the races were within. And I've seen a lot of debate back and forth on how you can play the different systems. When I played my campaign, I had instead of Elric winning versus his cousin Yurkun, I had Elric actually die as the eternal champion. Yurkun is victorious. And therefore the world is suffering under the hand of Yurkun as he tries to rebuild the Melnibonéan Empire. Because obviously, if you played an Elric in his time frame or his kind of, I don't know, universal stream or whatever, he's going to destroy the entire world as it gets reset. So that's a different way to play it. And then you can have a foil in Yurkun who has one of the brothers of Stormbringer. And then you can be fighting Melnibonéans and their dragons and stuff like that. The world itself doesn't have a vast amount of monsters in it comparatively to like a D&D campaign. So that's one of the things that you'll be suffering as a GM for, is looking for different things to fight. They're like winged apes. And obviously there are a lot of stuff that's taken out of, the context of the real world, tigers and their mammoths and, other stuff like that. And obviously Melniboné has their mounts, their mounted dragons. But there you don't see like a Smaug S dragon in there either. But so that's one of the challenges you're going to find if you're playing Stormbringer. That and explaining magic and how magic works to people who are looking to do it until they get the hang of being a summoner. And it's like, okay, instead of casting this fireball, I'm going to bring up an elemental and have it, throw fire, or I'm going to summon this demon and put it in my blade, and therefore I can hit other things that require demon blades to hit, or enchanted things to hit, like an elemental you cannot hurt without a magic blade. So you can find that. Obviously, in the world, there are a lot of ruins, there are a lot of cool societies, and you can find access for those online if you're just looking up to, and you want to see the setting, as well as there are probably, 24 different maps of the world of Elric. Some of them more detailed than others. And some of them vary to a certain degree. So you'd have to choose the one you want and then decide the way that you want to actually play out the campaign. But it's kind of fun if you have people who are serving the Lords of Law or the Lords of Chaos, because they can get extra fated points by doing things in actions which support their gods. So there's much more of a connective tissue between the players and deities, which you don't find necessarily in D&D unless you're like a cleric and you you really have to push forward that your spells are coming from your deity. But in this, everyone kind of has a connection in the world to either chaos or law. So that's something to take into a aspect too, and it makes another cool wrinkle as you play the game and you're giving out experience and extra elan, I guess, in this case, to keep the characters alive. But nevertheless, that is what I'm talking about today concerning Stormbringer and how I transitioned fast. As always, you can find my notes. They're free if you want to take a look at it below. Just request them. I'll have my email below. And otherwise, as always, great gaming, and we'll see you next time in Fast Talking.